Hello, and welcome to Chess Book Reviews 135. Before we start, please remember to like and subscribe down below. That's very important. I have three groups, two of which are dormant, but people are joining the other groups. I'm glad they are, but this is where the action is, and this is where the new stuff will start to appear. So I might be a bit slow, but please support me. You only got to press a few buttons after all. Don't have to spend any money, and you won't be pestered with advertising or anything. Now, today I want to look at three books which were printed by Mongoose Press in the USA. They have got one thing in common. They're brilliant. As you can see, this is of quite what by modern standards would be called a fun cover. I actually consider it's a little bit garish, but I do think it attracts the eye. And I know this book has sold extremely well. In fact, I know one bookstall who said, I can't get enough of this. After that, this book appeared, which is in the same series, obviously. The cover design is perhaps a bit small, but it's over half of the picture. I would have preferred larger text up here. And finally, and this is the new one, this is my motivation for mentioning the other two. Okay. And I will draw your attention to the fact it's got a preface by John Edwards. This book was published in 2014, and the author is Pete Tamburro, a very experienced chess writer, player, and I also share his interest in history, away from chessboard, I mean. This is a primer, it says. It's got lots of sections. I'll just read them out at random. Don't turn a one game into a draw, or worse. If your opponent gives you the center, it's generally a good idea to accept the gift. Solid passive defenses are waiting rooms for defeat. That's probably true, isn't it? Retire behind a wall of pawns, and then you think, Don't sleep in the streets. Nearly a Petula Clark song, isn't it? Don't sleep in the subway. Don't lose time in the openings. Part 2, he makes specific recommendations. The Hungarian variation of the Sicilian. The French defense with knight f6. So it's 3 knight f6. Doesn't say that, but it is, I think. The Caracan. Systems with g6, the Perk, the Modern, and the Gurgenitsa. That's interesting because at the British Championship some years ago, two masters were commentating, and the modern defense came up, or they thought it did, and it wasn't. It was the Gurgenitsa. The Scandinavian, the center counter, particular favorite of mine. The four knights game, well, you know what that is. The Vienna with g3, so it's the Mises Smyslov, and the two knights, the Fritz, the classical, and the d4 attack. So that would be probably about move 5 or 6 or something like that. And then it goes on to discuss things like the Nimzo Indian and the Dutch. And then it gives some annotated games. 53 annotated games, ending up with a game between Yates and Astalos. It's interesting that when I was ill, I had an accident in Tunisia when I was there for the Millennium celebrations. This is 25 years ago, but for all of that, I had a book of games with me, Astalos's games, the last thing you would expect anybody to be particularly interested in, and I dived into it, and I was able to move my hands and head, I suppose, and hopefully my brain, and yes, went all through it. Anyway, you don't want to hear that. But what you do want to hear, let me give you an indication of what the pages look like. It's nicely laid out. Don't think you could fall out with that, could you? It's an algebraic figurines. It's a big book. The English opening according to Botvinnik. Late in my chess life, I've been learning about the English defense using games and analysis and a book by Richard Palliser, amongst others. I think he collaborated. I'm not saying that that's better than this, but this could be a good starting place. And if you liked what you read, you could invest in the other book. Meanwhile, there you are. Now, the second is more advanced, and I have to be honest with you, this book was too advanced for me to understand and certainly to enjoy properly. I loved this. I shall come on to this, which is the new one, as I keep on saying, which I liked. But this, I didn't turn against it, but I did feel that it was too advanced for me. Building on the tremendous success of Openings for Amateurs, Pete Tamburro offers a new collection of practical tips to help club players and young chess players to play the opening on their own terms. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can guide the game into channels which you've studied prior to the game. It may be that you've got up early in the morning and did it like for an exam, cramming for an exam, or it might be that you've been interested from the word go. But whatever it means for you, look through Pete's book. Not all of it will do for you. Not all of it will be, oh, that's exactly what I want. But if a chef goes into his own kitchen, he sees a whole row of stuff. He may know in advance what he wants. We may tell somebody else what to get. You be the cook. And here, I think you'll find some nuggets of information. So let's see what it says. It's 69 selected model games. Troublesome variations commonly seen in amateur play, such as the Smith-Morra Gambit. So you may know that only as the Morra Gambit with 2d4 against the Sicilian. C takes d and then c3. The Grand Prix attack, knight c3 and f4 against the Sicilian, with bishop. Normally, at one time, it would have been bishop c4, but this gets snuffed out with e6 and d5, so that it's more common to play the bishop to b5, but don't neglect the bishop c4 line. The Schliemann defense, the 3f4 against f5 against the Lopez. That's a bit of fun, but it's very sharp, and you do need to know. Let's face it, it starts very early, move 3. So by that, I'm saying, you're going to have to give up the Lopez completely unless you know a good line against this. And the black player is going to be dripping with blood, waiting for, and it will be your blood, not his. If he knows it and you don't. Anti-Grunfeld, the two knights defense, the London system. Everywhere we look, Dr. Johnson said, when two men, Englishmen meet, they invariably speak of the weather. And a man who is tired of life, London is tired of life. Well, I'm tired of the London system with bishop bloody f4. The Stonewall attack, the Grand Prix, the Stonewall attack, and the Benko Gambit, 3b5, amongst others. There we are. Gives a little background about Pete. There he is, looking back. When I see him, he's normally falling asleep. I say, Pete, Basingstoke calling, and he responds, I mean, very courteously, don't get me wrong. And then he says, I think I'll sit down. What were you saying? Anyway, sorry, no, comedy time over. This is an he's an award-winning chess writer. American Chess Magazine, Chess Life for Kids, the Atlantic Chess News, and the British Chess Magazine. And this is predominantly, I don't think exclusively, articles which have appeared in the British Chess Magazine over the past few years. I was the editor of it when he came on the staff. I no longer am, but he has stayed the course, like the good chap he is. I'll give you just a flavour of what the pages look like. Double columns, smart, really nice looking. Let's look through the index, give you a little bit of flavour. The open games, 27, and then the semi-open games. And it begins with Fisher Pano, an accelerated dragon from 1958. It's a pity it doesn't begin with Fisher Pano, Palma de Mallorca, 1970. That was a very good game. You should look that game up. Anyway, game by Simon Williams. A game by Hugh Alexander. So there's plenty of English references. Closed games. Isolated queen pawn games. Game by Everback, one by Botvinnik. How instructive can you get? One by Everback, one by Botvinnik. And the queen pawn majority openings. In other words, when you've got more pawns on the queen side, what do you do? What are you aiming at ultimately, which may not come to fruition? You push, you exchange, and you end up with one extra. Black rushes across to try and stop you. You hit him on the king side. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We're going to look at Capablanca dealt with the Colle. Here's Colle himself, who wants to live such a short life. You wonder why Koltanowski wrote all those booklets, good ones too, about the Colle. Well, I'll tell you, because his friend, his colleague, died young. Koltanowski, who was to live a full and I hope enjoyable life, wrote in memory of his mate. And what could be more fitting and more charming? If you listen carefully, you can hear unmoved Queen's rooks yelling, "Hey, coach, let me get in. I want to play too." I was just reading that. I wasn't impromptu. At this point, I feel obliged to point out the first two moves to essay in this game were Henry Thomas Buckle against J.J. Lowenthal at London, 1851, which was, of course, the year of the Great Exhibition. I was delighted by Keres's loud and bold play, and that's a quote from Keats. So it doesn't always bird to the ode to the blithe spirit, bird though never wert. There you are. See the triple pawn on the C file and the queen on A5. See that? There we go. Well, this is the intermediate book. This is the one in the middle. And it talks about the books he's written and the topics covered. But as I say, if you are a subscriber or you have the back issues of the British Chess Magazine, look through this on the bookstall or whatever and see if it suits you. If you're above 1800 ELO, it probably will. If you're below that, as I am, with respect, you might like to look through it and save it up for later, but you may not want to grab it up. Which came as some relief and surprise, delight, I suppose I mean, when this appeared, the last of the three. Now, the first thing to say about this is that I don't like it. I don't like the picture. That is Ratey with that turban on his head, and I just think that looks daft. Peter, I'm sorry, but I've got to be honest. I don't think that's appropriate. I'll show you it again. and has FD8s. The final volume of Pete Tamburro's trilogy is finally here. Chock full of practical advice aimed at the average to advanced club player. He's as good as his word, that is what it is. Openings for amateurs, theory versus practice rounds off this acclaimed series with discussions of sharp play and sneaky openings that often face in tournament and cautionary tales of opening traps that people still fall into. You're telling me they do. And since you advanced this far, there are 38 carefully annotated games on key themes in positional chess, including a close look at isolated queen pawns, what to know about the minority attack, which I was mentioning just now, where you will learn some good strategies, one of them going back all the way to Alexander the Great. So there we are. The final section is a special feature rarely seen in chess literature, a collection of nearly 2 dozen games for the biggest amateur team tournament in the world, in which Peter's had a hand. Pete Tamburro addresses the question many players are asking, how to conduct the opening play. Instead of memorizing variations, he teaches ideas and concepts. I highly recommend this book. So do I. Let's begin where we normally do by showing you the format. It's consistent with the other 2 volumes, which is of itself, particularly for an older player perhaps, a pleasure and something of a relief. I'll read you out some of the chapter headings. Theory and tactics, chess, traps, pitfalls and swindles, going all the way back to 1750. Fork tricks, nimzos that can be tricky. Then there's the real sharp stuff, the sneaky sharp philidor, spectrum of positional chess, and so on. How to raise your rating 100 points without studying the openings. Well, Pete, I think we all like studying the openings. Positional chess, the Ruy Lopez. And it begins, and how charming, with a game by the late Dr. Jonathan Penrose, tipping his hat to the English school of chess. Although Penrose would have been pretty knocked, as he was about so much, particularly towards the end of his life, I happen to know, if he was bracketed in with anybody, even Hartson and Keane, let alone Clark or Barton or those of his generation. Yes, there's the Penrose game. Chapter 11. Drink it in. Penrose was for a short while the highest rated correspondence chess player in the world. He didn't become world champion, but he was close. Well, there we go. These are books by Mongoose Press, and the author is Mr. Pete Tamburro. I hope you will give them your time. But before I go, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Please like and subscribe. This has been Chess Book Reviews 135. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.